The story of Gideon is a very interesting story. It's about how God will always be there no matter what. Israel, God's special family, had once again turned away from God and started worshipping idols and did other things that wasn't approved. They had forgotten how God loved them and needed a reminder about that. So whenever the Israelites would plant crops, God would take away their crops and let the Midianites ruin their crops. He did that for a long 7 years. But God hadn't given completely up on the Israelites. And he found a man called Gideon who still prayed and worshipped God. So God sent an angel. The angel told Gideon that he had to destroy the idol's temple and build God a temple. But Gideon was a little bit scared. What if the other gets angry? But he did it anyway. God also wanted Gideon to lead an army against the Gideons. But Gideon was afraid. He asked for a special sign as he wasn't quite sure that who he spoke to was actually God. So he asked that if he laid a fleecy sheepskin on the ground, if there is dew on the fleecy skin and is dry on the ground, then Gideon will believe him. So he did just that, and the next morning he noticed the ground was dry and the fleece was soaking wet. But Gideon didn't quite believe this was true. So just to be sure, he did another test. This time, he wanted the ground to be wet and the fleece to be dry. God said, okay, I'll do that. The next morning, the ground was soggy and the fleece was dry. God wanted Gideon to start an army. So Gideon agreed and started with 32 men. But God said no. He didn't want 32 men, or else they'll be boasting about how the Israel won. Rather, they should have a smaller army. So Gideon said, whoever wants to go home can just go home, which led him to 10,000 men. But God said, no, I want less. Gideon was a little bit reluctant. So he agreed. Well, probably always best to agree to God's plan, right? So he took all of them to a stream of water to have water. And whoever drank from the water like dogs should go home. And that's how Gideon ended up with an army of 300 men. So one night, God let him sneak over to the Midian's camp and listen in. And here he heard one soldier explain to another soldier they had a dream. The loaf of bread was trampling over their camp. The other soldier said, that's probably Gideon's sword. And from that on, he knew they were going to win. So Gideon armed his soldiers with horns and pitchers and forks to make a lot of noise to win over the Midian. The Midianites were so scared, they came out of their tent, some even ran away, and others stayed to fight. In the end, Gideon won. The other Israelite was so grateful, and they wanted to make Gideon king. But Gideon said no, the real king should be God, as he was the one who actually helped them and not him.